Likewise, creators and readers of comics who don't feel the need to hide or make light of their interests are admirable. Such should be the norm, not the exception. The comic book form is one which is powerful, versatile, and expressive, one whose surface we've just begun to scratch at after all these decades. To be involved in such a rich art medium, in any capacity, is nothing to feel apologetic for. I say stop being so ashamed. Comic books have been slowly gaining ground in popular culture in recent years, but not nearly as quickly as the medium was struck down in the 50s. If that damage is to be undone, the voices of those who recognize the artistic capacity of comic books must be heard, and a whimpering, embarrassed voice doesn't make a very convincing argument. An interesting belief that is espoused, albeit usually with tongue-in-cheek, by some individuals in the industry, is that the bad reputation of comic books is a good thing, a way of cementing comics into the counterculture. Proponents of this idea say that the growth of comics can be assisted by the notion that they are subversive and edgy, and thus the current view of comic books as a disreputable art form shouldn't be eliminated, but subtly twisted to suit that outlaw image. The idea makes use of certain parallels between comics and rock music and assumes that such an environment could drape notoriety over comic book artists and writers, making them famous in the same way personalities like Eminem, Elvis, and Dennis Rodman have used their bad reputations as leverage. While the idea may not be put forth in complete seriousness, it does have merit. It's all about the lure of the forbidden fruit. However, the idea does nothing to dismiss the perception of comic book readers as half-wits. In fact, it seemingly embraces that stereotype. I think this ultimately limits how much the industry would be able to gain from the subversive angle. Only so many people will be willing to lump themselves in with perceived outlaws and imbeciles. Similarly, some people are of the opinion that the niche nature of the comic book market is a positive thing, as it reinforces the fact that comics are special and that readers are in tune to something the rest of the world just doesn't get. This breeds a sort of members-only elitism among fans and collectors, which may explain why some comic book readers are so secretive about their hobby. The obvious downfall to this philosophy is the lack of new blood. By definition, this belief eschews outsiders and newcomers, which is harmful to the business of comics. Who will support the industry when this limited group of fans is gone? Obscurity and the woes of an underappreciated art form don't generate sales. The comic book industry faces some serious problems, in spite of all the progress that's been made in its history. One can trace the source of most of these problems all the way to the very roots of the medium itself. I don't claim to have all the answers, being someone who was only familiar with the industry from a very limited standpoint. All the changes I've discussed, all the schemes I've proposed to get comic books out into the open and gain them acceptance, can only be considered educated guesses based upon my experiences and research. The questions have been there for a long time, and so far only a meager attempt has been made to answer them. For too long, the accepted answer has been, well, this is the way it's always been done. That's clearly not going to work anymore. The ideas I've presented in this chapter may seem naive in nature, but it isn't naivete that drives these notions. It's the realization that unless these issues are faced head-on, and soon, the comic book industry as we know it is in danger of dying, and one of America's few original art forms may fall to the wayside.